Hey, everybody. This is your host for Marketing Trends, Jeremy Bergeron, Vice President of Content Strategy at Mission.org. And today I spoke with Head of Content Marketing at Robinhood, a guy by the name of Rashad Drakeford. And this guy's experience working with brands like Revolt TV, Apple. I mean, he's done some incredible things, leading social media, global content for Beats by Dre. I mean, he's really had some exceptional mentors, and along the way, he's learned some amazing things about content. So I think you're going to love this conversation. Let us know what you think. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Marketing Trends. Thanks so much for stopping by again. This is your host, Jeremy Bergeron. I'm the Vice President of Content Marketing at Mission.org. And today, I have a really incredible guest in Rashad Drakeford, Head of Content Marketing at Robinhood. Rashad, welcome to the show.
Oh man, Jeremy, thank you so much for having me.
I'm super stoked to have you, man. The word on the street is that you haven't done a podcast in quite a few years. Is that right?
It's been a very long time. I worked at Apple for a while, and the rules there are very strict on doing press, which I completely understand. So yeah, but it's been a while.
Man, well, this is exciting because when I see a guy like you, you have a really interesting background, man. You spent time, well, first of all, working for the U.S. Department of Energy. So you have this kind of politic background that's influenced your experience. Then you got into Madison Square Garden entertainment and did, sports partnerships and entertainment partnerships. Spent some time at Revolt Media, spent almost 4 years at Revolt Media, actually, and doing a lot of content there and integrated marketing. So a guy like you that really hasn't been sharing a lot publicly, this is going to be an interesting conversation. So I'm super pumped. And on that note, I kind of want to, what I love to do with in the beginning of the show is I just want to start with the beginning for you. Like, where did this genesis of interest in marketing start for you? Was it a brand? Was it a book? Was it a leader? What was it that, back in the day where you were like, okay, I see a path in marketing and I'm going down that path? Where did it start for Rashad Drakeford?
Man, that's a great question. The funny thing is, I never saw this was never on the path. The truth of the matter is that when I was in high school, I was going home from the train one day. It was my junior year at Forest Hills High School in Queens, New York. By the way, Jeremy, I will mention Queens a number of times in this podcast.
That's fantastic, fantastic.
And I love Queens, love being from Queens. But yeah, I was going home, and there was a magazine, a Black Enterprise magazine, with two executives spinning basketballs on their hand, and it was and it said co-executives of the year. I'm like, who are these black guys in suits spinning basketballs on their hands that are executives? It was a very like foreign thing to see, And so I bought the magazine, and it was Tudima Ushery, who at the time was president of the Dallas Mavericks, and Steve Mills, who at the time was the SVP of business operations for Madison Square Garden Company. And I read that magazine, Jeremy, probably like 100 times. I highlighted it. I'm on AOL, just aging myself. I was on AOL, looking them up, trying to find their contact information. I found it. And so I emailed both of them. And I said, hey, my name is Rashad Drakeford. I'm a junior at Forest Hills High School. And your stories really inspired me, and I want to become the first Black commissioner of the NBA. What advice do you have for me?
Yes, yes.
And Steve Mills, unfortunately, never responded, but Tudima Ushery did. And he became this email pen pal for years. And we kept in touch for a long time.
Wow.
I went to Hampton, and my goal was, because looking at all the commissioners of sports, they all had law degrees. So I went to Hampton. I was like, all right, I'm majoring in political science. I'm going to go to law school. Then I'm going to work at Proskauer Rose, which at the time was the NBA's outside counsel. And then I was going to go in-house and become the general counsel of the NBA and then become the commissioner. I had a whole plan. And then I was dating a young lady. Every great story starts with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was dating, talking to a very incredible young lady who at the time was going to Harvard. And she was, changing dorms for the year, and I was going up to hang out with her. And she's like, this guy named Barack Obama is running for president, and he's a Harvard alum, so they're having buses go up to hear him speak. in Manchester, New Hampshire. Do you want to go? I'm like, yeah, I heard the guy. Mine just April 2007 to give context and framing to this. And so I'm like, yeah, I want to go. I'll go here and speak. And I'm in, again, I'm at Hampton in college for political science to go to law school. And I hear Barack Obama comes out. I hear him speak, and I was like most people, I was like just blown away, like in the moment. And I just said to a random guy next to me, I'm like, man, I think this guy could really become president. I think he could win. And the guy was like, you really think so? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, my name's Hans Riemer. I'm the National Youth Vote Director of the campaign. Do you want to join the campaign? I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
I do. And so, a month goes by, and then I joined the campaign as HBCU outreach coordinator for Students for Barack Obama, which was the youth vote arm of the Obama campaign. And I do that. Obama wins. And then they're like, hey, during your winter break, do you want to come work on the presidential transition team? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I wound up doing that and working for Valerie Jarrett and Michael Strautmanis doing, public outreach.
Wow.
And then I graduated from college in May of 2009 and joined the administration shortly thereafter in September. And I worked on the BP oil spill and Recovery Act and, climate change summits. And it was really an incredible experience. But going back to my original point, like I always knew I wanted to work in sports and entertainment. Particularly, I wanted to go to law school and become a lawyer to become the commissioner. But the real, kind of nugget of it all was I wanted to work in sports and entertainment. And my father, he got ill and needed a kidney transplant. So I moved back to New York. I gave my father a kidney.
Wow.
Yeah. And then during that time, I reached back out to Chidima Ushery. And I said, Chidima, I'm moving back to New York. And, as you know, my dream was always to work in sports and entertainment. I would love to work, for the New York Knicks. I would love to work at Madison Square Garden Company. And he's like, let me talk to some people and circle back. I didn't hear back for 2 weeks. And it's like one of those things as a young person, like you're like, I don't want to be annoying, but like, I kind of want to get an answer. I want to follow up. And I'll never forget, it was like 7:00 in the morning on a random weekday. And Scott O'Neill, the president of MSG Sports, reaches out to me and says, hey, Chidima says you're a star. What are you looking to do? Now, mind you, I have a political science degree.
Wow.
I'm not the lawyer that I wanted to be, right? And so I just go on, and Scott, I hope Scott hears this because this will probably be pretty hilarious for him. But I went on, the Knicks.com and looked at the team directory, and it's broken down into divisions. It's like, ticket sales. I'm like, I don't want to do ticket sales. The other one was like legal. I'm like, well, I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to do that. There was like hospitality. I'm like, I don't want to do hospitality. And then I see this thing, it said marketing partnerships. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. So I go and then I look up Scott O'Neill's biography, and he got his start in marketing partnerships. So I'm like, I reached back, so I emailed him back. I'm like, hey, I want to go and I want to work in marketing partnerships. He's like, oh man, like your timing couldn't have been better. We're going through a reorganized organization. I think there'll be some openings, happening in that group, and I'll connect you with the EVP of the group. Now, mind you, I swear, Jeremy, I had no idea what marketing partnerships were. I had no concept of it whatsoever. So I'm going through the interview process, and I'm like kind of catching nuggets about what the job actually entails.
Wow.
But by the time I actually understood what it was, I did feel like my experience did have some connective tissue to what I wanted to ultimately do. And I remember interviewing, and I'm sorry if I'm going a little long. So
no, continue. This is great. No, this is awesome.
And I remember interviewing at Madison Square Garden, and one of the interviews, like, I don't understand. You have no sports experience. Like, how does your political, experience like translate to this world? And I said, well, if you could sell a man named Barack Obama in a state that used to be the Confederate capital of the country, you could sell the New York Knicks.
Wow.
And my point really was that the fundamentals are the same, right? You have a vision and a message that you're trying to convey, so people convert into supporters and become advocates on your behalf, right?
Yep.
That's what we call word of mouth marketing, right? Mm-hmm. You tell stories that resonate with people, right? You want to inspire them to think, to feel, to act. That's content marketing. You're looking at data and analytics to develop audience segmentation and call to action messaging. you're building bespoke strategies to target specific demos and regions and behaviors to get voters to, to come to your side, to support your initiatives and support your policies. That's performance marketing. And so at its core, a good political campaign, a good politician is really a well-oiled marketing machine. And, and one of the things I loved, I think, about being in the Obama administration is that every single day we were really focused on how can we help people? How can we leave a positive impact on people's lives? And, I think companies should really approach their mission and their goals the same way. Like, how are you, like the product that you're creating, the message that you're delivering, the platform you're developing, how is it actually improving people's daily lives? Like, how are you being additive to their human experience? And I think, I tried my best to convey that during that interview process, and I got the job. And so, wow. And then that's how I got into sports entertainment marketing. So yeah, long way to get to your answer, but yeah,
that's amazing. Well, I'm curious, okay, now I get it. I get an idea of why you haven't done much podcasting, because you just been living a magical life. I mean, you're the guy that just shows up at a place and happens to be sitting next to another guy who opens a door, and it's a fascinating story. I'm curious though, because you do something that I often do, which is if I want to connect with someone, regardless of where they are, quote unquote high up they are, or I just reach out directly, and a lot of times they respond. It's like, and a lot of people just never think, can I actually just message that person? And then, yeah, you can. So I'm curious for you, who encouraged you to do it? Like, who was the champion where you're like, Rashad, you can do anything you want to do? Because clearly somebody was telling you this because you started living that way, and it seems like it's part of your value system. Yeah. Like, if you want to do something, you're gonna take that step forward. You know what I mean? And so, was that your parents? Was that your grandparents? Like,
I was gonna say my parents would probably. Jeremy, one day we'll have like a cookout. You could definitely come
yes,
and hang
count out. me in.
Because my parents will tell you I was just a weird kid. I don't know, because I've been asked that before. I'm like, my parents, like, I will say, to give my parents a lot of credit. I mean, growing up, I was exposed to a lot of great things that made me understand like what was possible, right? So like my mom worked at Citibank as she was a secretary in their like, HR department. But like you see like, like the guys in the corner offices and, you're seeing how they're moving like, and then my father works, he's been at ABC now for 45 years. And so I would go and sit in the control room while, he was a cameraman.
Wow.
for all my children, the ABC Sports and The View, and now he's at Good Morning America. And like I would sit in the control room while he was working, and you're seeing like directors and executive producers. And so my mind was always like, I had I think a natural soulful curiosity about myself. And and my parents had encyclopedias in the house. And so like I think I just had like a natural like, I had like an imagination of what was possible, but I think it was instilled in me by my parents because of like just the spaces in which they occupied and put me in. I really can't point to the thing, but the truth is like my thinking was like the worst that someone ever could say is no or not respond, right? Like Scott Mills never responded. Steve Mills. Steve Mills never responded. And Steve and I met Steve. He's a phenomenal guy, great person. He never responded. Like I didn't die, nothing happened to me. And it's like, the worst thing that could happen is that. But more often than not, when I reached out to people, whether it was like Howard Gantz at Proscott Rose, he had me come to the office. Like, when I emailed him, and Dave Howard at the New York Mets, like just had me come by and like, so I think that, I just was like, well, I'm just going to reach out to these people and just tell my story. And, and we'll see where the chips will lay. But like, there's an old adage in hip hop, closed mouths don't get fed. And I think it's just like, kind of living by that mantra.
That's amazing. So after Madison Square Garden Entertainment, you had a couple years there. You then went over to Revolt Media, right? And so you spent some time. What's some of the things that you kind of began to do at Revolt, and then what are some takeaways that really help prep you for now being, head of content marketing at Robinhood?
Yeah, I tell people this all the time. I think Revolt was one of the most important experiences of my life. And I know Revolt hasn't turned into, I think, like this behemoth, TV network. But one of the things that I gotta give credit to Puff and Andre Harrell, who passed away, but got rest in peace, Andre. But one of the things that I think they did really well is they hired phenomenal people. And you look at the people that they hired at Revolt and where they are now, whether it's like Tuma Basa or Chloe Williams or Bessadonna, Julian Mitchell, who's like a phenomenal writer now. I mean, there's so much talent that came through those doors that a lot of people got their first shot at that place, at a really visible level. And so I really, I learned there, like, hire great people.
Wow, that's awesome. And then, so you really was that really the first kind of leadership role for you? You were director there. So now you're transitioning from kind of individual contributor. You've learned you've had some chops. You've had some awesome experience. You've had to translate that experience, and now you're at Revolt, and now you're into leadership. What's that intersection like?
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say also, it was definitely my first time leading people, albeit it was like two people, but I do think that it was like really cutting my teeth in, like, it's not just about what I'm bringing to the table, but like, how are you also making people better? And the great thing about being at Revolt also, I would say, is that because we were a smaller media network, we really were able to take a lot of chances and try new things. And so, when I think about, the way we leaned into our ability to create branded content, across social and digital, and like, we were doing like virtual reality concerts, which, like, we were white labeling content. This is back in 2013.
That was like ahead of his time. Yeah.
Ahead of his time. Yeah. No one was really doing that. But
wow.
Part of our thing was, and funny enough, like, this idea came from, people like Dave Shirley, who was a coordinator, within our department. It was like, well, like, if MTV is going out here and like they're able to kind of create interstitials and create vignettes that live on linear TV because they have 80 to 100 million households, like, what's our value prop? And I think what we landed on was, we have phenomenal storytellers. We have great content creators. We're going to go and create content for brands that we'll use across all of our social, all of our digital and linear. And on top of that, we'll white label it and give it to you to use however you want across your channels. And so we were able to, I think, really, be innovative in that space. And also, I think a little bit ahead of our times as well. Like, we were able to, I think, bring brands into like the edges of culture by making them participants in culture and not just sponsors of it, right? Like, you're not just throwing your name on something. It's like, we're actually going to help you tell like really phenomenal stories. We're going to help you actually break artists with us. We're going to, have live experiences that people get immersed in at Art Basel and South by Southwest and Coachella and other events. And so I think that we did a really great job of that. And then I think that's where I also learned that the best branded content is when your brand is not the story, but the character within the story. And I think that's how we're approaching it at Robinhood. But going back to your point about leadership, like, a lot of the things that we did, a lot of the cool things that we did, the innovative chances we took were because, you had interns and coordinators that were given space to come up with ideas, and they weren't shouted down by leadership. I think leadership, I think what they say, like, I think the best thing to knowing what you know is knowing what you don't know. And surrounding yourself with people that are really tapped in and can fill those spaces for you.
That's awesome. So let's talk about Apple, and then I want to talk about Robinhood, because you had you jumped into some, after you left Revolt, you joined Apple, you got into head of global social media. You did some stuff with Beats by Dre while you were there. Talk about your experience, some of the things you did. Maybe there's some takeaways at your experience at your 4 years plus there at Apple. Yeah.
So I was on Beats by Dre business, and it was an incredible experience. I mean, I came in post acquisition. So when Apple, acquired Beats, and I think what I enjoyed the most there was, so I worked at Madison Square Garden, a really corporate environment, doing marketing partnerships with sponsors and advertisers. Then I went to I went to a startup, that was really at the intersection of like content and culture and music. And then I went to Beats by Dre, which, yes, is a culture brand, but like also within, the biggest, like, one of the most revered and biggest companies in the world. And like the brand was going through this transition of, who we are, not just as Beats by Dre, but how, like, who is Beats by Dre within the Apple ecosystem. And so it was a great opportunity to try new things. So I helped, I launched the Beats by Dre's first digital content platform called Stories, which lived on .com and was amplified across different platforms. And the idea there was we wanted to create something, again, going back to like being additive. Like, like the goal wasn't to be, I tell people all the time, like, it wasn't the goal to be the complex. I wanted to be Fader. And what I mean by that is, Complex does a lot of great work, and amazing work. But they're really big and they cover a lot of stuff. It's like, it's kind of like a fire hose.
Right.
And where like, but if you talk to an artist, there's nothing like when the artist got the Fader cover, that meant something.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, man, I'm on the cover of Fader. And Fader's social was small. Their engagement wasn't that high, but there's something about having the thought leaders and tastemakers in culture co-sign who you are and tell your story that made that moment really significant. And I wanted Stories to be that place. Here's Beats by Dre, the brand that has, been defiant and stood up for artists and athletes in so many different ways and created an entire category, if we're being honest.
Right.
Whose founders were incredibly creative and had an entrepreneurial spirit that is unmatched. Like I had lunch with Jimmy Iovine last week, and it was like, just sitting with him, like, you're like, man, like this guy, just what an incredible spirit and energy that he has. And so like how can we develop a platform where we can, tell the stories of people that are kind of, that have that same DNA. And we did some really great work and we told some phenomenal stories. And I think we were able to, add a filter that from an always on content perspective that I think, served as great compliments to like our brand campaign work. And then, I took over the social team, joined the social team, I should say, right after right before Ahmaud Arbery happened last year. And it was interesting because, like, I was in this role of like global editorial where I was like overseeing, emerging influencers and working, with, again, creating the digital content platform and then moving into the social role when Ahmaud Arbery happened and George Floyd happened. I think that the brand, had to, decide who we wanted to be. And I give so much credit to Chris Thorne, who is the CMO there. I give him like a lot of credit that when those moments happened, he reached out to a lot of the Black employees and asked us like how should the brand show up? And he met with all of us like weekly.
Wow.
And, and he really like allowed us to lead. So the work you saw with us, supporting Colin Kaepernick and signing Colin Kaepernick, that was done through that moment. Signing Bubba Wallace was done in that moment. The Do You Love Me piece that won a ton of awards, the great piece that was done by Beats in Translation, like that was born out of that moment. And, being on the social team during that time and, moving the brand, I think, to who we were at our core, felt really special because, the years leading up to that, I think we were, stretching as a company to try to find, new spaces, right? So you have Bose that was going after like, the professional that was traveling to London and Berlin daily. Like we were trying to find those new places and stretching, beyond, I think, the urban and Black consumer. And we had some successes there. But at the end of the day, like we were Beats by Dre. And I think it allowed us in this new moment to go back to like who we were. And that's not, and that to me is not an exclusive thing. I think it's an inclusive thing, right? I think, Black culture and Black music and Black art is general market. It is pop culture.
Yep.
And I think that, from what I've seen, the brand has done incredibly well by being, I think, authentic to its core mission. I think being a part of that pivot was just such a phenomenal experience. And like, I just want to shout out people like Amina Charles and Buku who were there that did some just phenomenal work to get the brand to where it is.
That's awesome. And so it's clear stepping into a space like Apple, you step into this almost unlimited support and creativity where you can really, depending on where you're at, you can really fly, and you've got the opportunity to make moves and influence marketing. And so that's beautiful. And you're going to work with some brilliant people, clearly, like the people that have been around you in your personal ecosystem as you've navigated your career have been a big part of your growth and development. It's cool. So that's awesome. And so from the outside looking in, what was Robinhood about? Why Robinhood? And I'm just curious, what did you see there? And then tell us about what you're up to now.
Sure. Yeah. What I saw there was, I saw like an incredible opportunity. Growing up in Queens, third reference.
I love it.
Growing up in Queens, I think Black folks in general don't talk a lot about money. And I was always told like, hey, go get a job, get your 401k. You stay there for as long as you can.
Yeah. You
retire, and you live in, you go off to the sunset. And I remember going to Apple and like they're like, yeah, here's your equity package, here's here's your cliff, here's your ESPP. Then I started talking to other corporates like, yeah, talking about ETFs. I'm like, I have no idea what any of them are talking about whatsoever. I'm saying they're like, yeah. I'm going back and Googling, like, trying to understand what they're talking about. And what really inspired me about Robinhood was I was on vacation with a few of my friends. And these are guys, I grew up with. And they're like, yeah, one of them was reading the New York Times and talking about how he's like, going to start investing in Tesla because of a supply chain issue that he sees. And I'm just like this is a guy that you would never, ever would think would be having this type of conversation. And Robinhood really did, I think, lower the barrier of entry and democratize information and democratize people being able to participate in the wealth generation process, especially I think for folks that have been historically and systematically left out of financial empowerment, in this country. And so I felt like there was an incredible opportunity to come here and to help tell stories and help inspire people to get involved in taking like their financial health and wellness into their own hands. And I think like that was just an incredible opportunity to me that I just wanted to tackle. And
wow.
And then also I think coming over it, as you talk about like growing in your career, if we're I know like a lot of marketers are listening to this, but I think growing in your career, sometimes you have to leave the big ship. You have to leave the big ship and take a chance, and the opportunity to lead a team and to like be the one helping set strategy, be the one helping develop messaging and direction. Versus like kind of like getting the information and then having to tactically execute, but being a part of that first process, I think was something that was really attractive to me.
So what informs your kind of content marketing strategy at Robinhood? Like, what are some of the pieces that you kind of have on your canvas, if you will, and where are you playing?
Yeah, I'll zoom out a little bit on that too, because I think the best content is content that makes you feel something. It makes you, going back to what I said earlier, it makes you think, feel, and act, right? And I think content creators and content marketers have a unique opportunity to help human beings like recognize like their full potential, right? Like we love Nike because they aren't just selling you apparel, they are amplifying an inspiring way of life because they believe that we're all athletes, right? We love Apple because they aren't just selling you a MacBook Pro, but they're inspiring you to be a creative being. And I think the best brands are able to position their products as a conduit to like living a better life, right? We love Spike Jonze, we love Peter Jackson, we love Ryan Coogler because they They don't just make films, but they immerse you into their stories, into their worlds. And that like, and that has to be the constant inspiration for us that are in the content marketing space. And so when I think about what we're developing at Robin over the next year, over the next 2 years, next year, 3 years, is like, how do we inspire people to think, feel, and act? How do we, make them feel confident about their financial future? How do we tell stories of people that that they say they see themselves in, right? One of the things that we saw during the pandemic is that with this explosion of retail investors is that Black folks, brown folks, and women are making up the majority of this new class. So it's not your old, finance bro. There's a new class that's being, born out of this moment. And like, how do we invite them in? How do we have our arms wide open to let them know that they're not alone? And to me, the best marketers, they're able to position their brand as a friend. And what I always tell people is that when you think about your content cadences, I hope I'm answering your question. Like kind of
this is yes.
When you think about content cadence, I think there's like this, I think this knee-jerk reaction that we have to be, when they say always on, like it must mean we're posting every single day. We must be telling people what we're doing every single moment. And the example I always tell people is like, how do you feel when we all have friends or acquaintances in our lives that when we see a name pop up on our phone, we know that they're reaching out because they just want something.
Yes.
We all have that friend. And we also have the friend that we know that when they come to brunch or dinner, that they're just going to monopolize the conversation and no one else is going to be able to speak. No one wants to be that friend, right? So why do you think as a brand, you would take that same approach? The only time someone hears from the brand is if you're trying to sell me something, if you're trying to ask me for my money. And then every time I go on your social media or your digital platforms, you're just telling me about what you're doing, what you have going on, what great news that you have. What about me? This is a one-way relationship. No one wants to be that person. You want to be the friend that like is reaching out to say, hey, I hope you're okay. Hey, I saw this article, I saw this podcast, I think you would like that. You want to be that person. And then occasionally I may ask you for something. Mm-hmm. But that's not the default position every time I'm talking to you. And I think that's where I think a lot of marketers can get content marketing wrong. And so when we're thinking about, our content strategy and point of view at Robinhood, it's really about that and like building trust and, and transparency with our customers and potential customers and industry stakeholders. And I think we have a special opportunity to do that.
So yeah, because it's like I love it's like you're really on top. You're really preaching about like, hey, let's not forget who we're speaking to and what's most important to them. And so how can we really just be like a valuable friend of like, hey, when I'm calling, oh wait, Jeremy's calling, I know he's got some good stuff to share. I'm gonna actually. So it seems like that's really informing your approach about what you're putting out there. What does that cadence look like though at a high level? Because I know you're not, hey, by Robinhood, you're sharing value, you're building relationship, you're trying to engage with the audience. So since you're adding a lot of value in that cadence of communication, how often are you doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there are things that we do. I think, even when we talk about new products, it's always through the lens of like, how is this benefiting you? So when we talk about, 24/7 phone support, like, it's not like, hey, we have phone support. It's like, hey, we're here for you 24/7 to help you. Mm-hmm. We're here. Like, again, we're the friend that you could call in an emergency and we're going to pick up, we're here for you. And we're making this easy for you to be able to get to the right person. So we're actually having the filters within the UX that allows you to get to like the right person and not having to be transferred around. So your experience is easy, right?
Yeah. I'm curious, where do marketing leaders or just marketing content leaders go wrong with content marketing?
They forget to be human, which is like, I think what we, right? That's kind of what we're talking about. Like, I think as marketers, like we're living and breathing our brands. And sometimes we just begin to talk to ourselves. and I tell people all the time, like, never forget how you consume content. Never forget what resonates with your kids, how you enjoy what you enjoy when you watch a movie. The feeling you get in your gut when you see like really inspirational art. Never forget those feelings. Never forget to be human. I think the other friction I see is that marketers just hire other marketers. I think the companies that will win over the next 10 years, they will bring in journalists, they'll bring in filmmakers, they'll bring in visual artists into their marketing divisions. Because we know the content that resonates with people. So why not bring those people in-house, help your brand deliver their best work, right? And I think something I said earlier, I think a lot of marketers and content marketers specifically, where they go wrong also, I think, is that they don't stay soulfully curious. Like, it's okay not to know everything as long as you are on a constant quest to explore the world around you. I took up photography, and it's been a phenomenal outlet for me. Like, I do film photography, 35 millimeter mostly. And it's phenomenal because it's like, you need a creative outlet that allows you to touch and feel society, right? It allows you to have a different vantage point outside of like what you're just doing as a in your day job. Like, what are those other creative touch points that you have just in your life and how you move through society? And that's why I love going to New York a lot. I live in Los Angeles now, but I love going to New York and just walking around. Like, especially when I was at Beats, it was great because like you get to see like what people what headphones they're wearing, how they're using the headphones, when they pull it down, are you seeing more people in ear or over ear? You're kind of able to see that, but you're just seeing how people move through life, and like there's something inspirational about that. But I think like the point I'm trying to make, I think, is like marketing is like a Da Vinci meld of like art and science, and I think, a lot of marketers have the science part down pretty well, but like the art side,
yes,
there is a very fine line.
Yes. I'm hearing that from a lot of marketing leaders, that to be a modern marketing leader, you really have to have that right brain, left brain. And the ones that are going to win long term, like you said, they've got the science, but they also have the art, and they've got that balance. And there's also a lot of them that are kind of they're phasing out because they don't have that ability. Mm-hmm. And so it's an interesting intersection. And I think, to your point, great storytelling, it's gonna win. And so why not be the brand that tells great stories, right? Why not be the brand that really informs your customers and your audience and your fans, right, in a way that's really entertaining and educating and all those things. How do you view kind of influencer collaborations at Robinhood?
Yeah. I do. I will say, I hope that one day we retire the word influencer. but I understand, because like it's an easy catch all.
It is.
But like it's funny because like I'm having a conversation with a few artists and folks and I try to catch myself because I'm like, man, I don't want to cheapen like the dedication that they've kind of like put towards like mastering, a skill or a talent that really like kind of impacts our world in like real ways. So like, but I think, to answer your question, the way I have the team approaching is really like avoiding one-offs and developing like real partnerships with talent that not only push, forward our business goals, but also helps the talent reach their goals. And, I never walk into a partnership conversation with a fully fleshed out plan. I'm always asking like, what are they looking to accomplish? And like, how do they think Robinhood can help them accomplish that thing? And then I'm also asking, I'm also, I guess not asking, but more making sure that our missions are aligned, because I want to make sure like, this is not just about, someone cashing a check, but like we're both invested and passionate about what we can do together. And then also I'd say, I don't let social media followings, like how many followers someone has, be like the determining factor on doing a deal or not. Like, yes, numbers you see on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter are important, but like, what's the engagement and what's the conversion metric from past partnerships or even their own work? Because I'd rather work with someone who has 100,000 followers that is incredible talent and is really making an impact on society and has great engagement than someone that has 1 million followers. that may not, have, some of those other attributes. So I think, being very intentional about who you're partnering with and in moving beyond kind of like the surface level numbers or like who's just hot in the moment, but like making sure that this person is like really aligned to your values, really aligned to your mission, and that like the collaboration is really additive to both parties.
I love that. How is innovation informing your content marketing there at Robinhood, whether it be AI or technology or sorts of things like that? What are some of the things you're looking at, some of the things you're actively doing that are really kind of pushing the envelope in terms of content marketing?
We're not doing well. We haven't. The AI thing is interesting. It's something I think we've been exploring on the on certain parts of the marketing funnel and org. I think for us, I think what we have coming down the pipeline, so maybe I could come back and talk about it once we're launching. I think is very different from what you see in the space from our competitors. I can say that. I feel very, very confident about the community that we're building, the human connection that we're prioritizing. I feel really good about how we are about how we're like kind of positioning ourselves in that respect. And so I think we're innovative in how we are going to show up. Versus like maybe different tools. I think it's like the how we show up is going to be very, very different.
Okay. How do you as the head of content marketing at Robinhood, so you have there's a general perception the public has on Robinhood. Depending on when you Google the word Robinhood, you'll see lots of different things, right? You'll see lots of things. You'll see positive PR. You'll see not so positive PR. Now, when you wake up and see these sorts of things happening around, in my opinion, a really cool brand. I'm a fan of Robinhood. And so you've got certain voices, saying certain things. How does that inform you as a marketing leader at that brand? Do you take those sorts of things with a grain of salt? Do you use that momentum or lack of momentum perceived to the next thing that you do? I'm curious about how you view that.
Yeah. I think we're very clear-eyed on some of the things that we see in the market, but I think we also have innovated retail investing. I think that when you you bring in over 22 million people into a new space, when you are showing up, you're making something that has been typically, I think, difficult to use. You're making it easy to use. You're making it approachable. I think that that can lead to a certain narrative, and so we have some work to do there. We're clear-eyed about the work that we need to do, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And so I think for us, it's like being clear about the work we need to do and some of the things that we could improve upon, but also being very being clear around the value that we've added to people's lives, the positive impact we've had on people that have been historically and systematically left out of the wealth generation process. Now seeing taking their financial future seriously. I think like when we look at that and we keep our eye on the prize around who we are and what we're trying to provide to society and to people, I think that's how we win. One of the things I learned in the Obama administration is that Obama is really good at this. Is like, you never get too high, you never get too low, but you stay clear and you stay at it. You stay at it. And so for us, I think we know. I mean, like zero commissions. Like we started that. Fractional shares. We started that. Humanizing the space. Like that's us. And so we hang our hats on those things, and we're gonna, continue to, grow and evolve and learn along with our customers.
So what's what's keeping you going now, these days? What outcomes are you like when these things happen, when these points are on the board where you're like, okay, well, I've achieved this at Robinhood? Or there's some kind of things that you've got your eyes set on in terms of just results that you want to have generated or be a part of contributing when it comes to that brand?
Yeah, I think it's like, I think like for most content marketers or marketers in general, right? Like, you want to impact brand equity, and positive sentiment. For us, trust and transparency, and reliability. We want to help, drive our numbers around those metrics. And so that's kind of like our focus is like, how are we driving, user consideration? How are we approaching? How are we driving growth? How are we driving engagement? How are we impacting conversion? And then, sentiment, of course. So I think I think we're looking at all those different benchmarks, looking at, 2020, 2021, as we're going to 2022. How are we actually measuring up against, the past and based off and where we want to go. I think those are kind of the things that we're looking at, more than anything else. And so constantly going back to like those OKRs and saying, okay, how are we reaching these? Like, what's our plan to get there? And how are we measuring that? So funny enough, I'm here in Menlo Park because we're actually, having our offsite to kind of like, drilling more concretely around what we're
nice.
Doing.
Nice. Awesome. That's cool. So we've got about 6 minutes left. I've got a couple questions, but I want to kind of make sure, is there anything you want to make sure we cover that we can get into that, or we can just proceed with my questions?
Yeah, I love the questions that Alan sent around around leadership style and leaders that have influenced me. I would love to kind of get
okay.
to that.
Let's do that. Let's do that question, and then we'll get into the kind of hot roundtable at the end, and then we'll wrap up. Cool. So, Rashad, what marketers or leaders in your life have influenced and informed your leadership style?
Man, I've honestly been blessed beyond measure because I've had the honor of working with some of the best leaders in the game. And I think about like Jason White, the former CMO of Beats by Dre. Like, he literally changed my life, and he saw something special in me that honestly I didn't fully see in myself, and he gave me a shot and hired me at Beats by Dre. And like, I'm forever grateful to him. And one of the things he taught me while in that role was how to harness my ideas. He taught me how to. I gotta redo that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, do it.
Jason White, the former CMO. For example, Jason White, the former CMO of Beats by Dre. Like, he literally changed my life, and he saw something special in me that I didn't fully see in myself, if I'm being honest. And he gave me a shot and like hired me at Beats by Dre, and like, I'm forever grateful to him for that. And one of the things he taught me was like how to harness my ideas and strategically frame them and align them to business goals. I think I came in because I was coming from Revolt, and it was like, we should just do this. We should just create that. And he's like, well, how does it actually align and drive business, right? And so it's like, it's great to have cool ideas, but like, how are you actually, impacting, our quarterly results? And so I think, having the experience of like, having, great content and cultural marketing ideas is one thing, but being able to figure out how to leverage them to drive business is another. And I think that he really helped me harness like that art and science that we talked about earlier. And then I would say, Scott O'Neill, he's the first leader like I ever actually wanted to like run through a physical wall for.
Yeah.
And he's one of the most inspiring people I ever met. And like, he instilled in me that like no person or job is too small, and you treat everyone the same. And you have the same level of respect for them. You listen to ideas from all corners and levels. And you also incentivize your team to have excellence. And like, those are some of the things that I think I took to Revolt and took to Beats, and now I have a Robinhood. And I think like building culture of excellence is a really tough thing to do. But like, if it starts at the top, it's really possible. And like, people will then, I think, meet the moment. Like, really talented people will meet the moment. And the last two people I'd say is probably Omar Johnson and Andre Harrell. Omar because he's from Brooklyn, I'm from Queens, and we had a lot in common. And when I looked at him, I was like, man, he made becoming a marketing leader feel like attainable. And we both have like a defiance and instinctual confidence that I think guides us. And I think like seeing him in his space like really was helpful for me. And I think, Andre, again, I think I would say around trusting instincts, like Andre was really great at that. But he also was able to eye talent, not just from a musical lens or entertainment lens, but like in a corporate environment, in an office environment. He would see people like myself and Sharice McKenzie and Elle Houston and say like, I see you guys, and I'm going to bring you under the wings. I'm going to give you opportunities. I'm going to speak your name positively in circles. I'm going to ask you questions in meetings in front of executives to give you a chance to shine. I'm going to give advice and take you to dinner to give my perspectives on different things. And like Andre was who was a legend. For him to take that time was so special, and really like impacted like how I kind of approach mentoring the next generation of marketers coming behind me.
I love it. What was Andre's last name again?
Andre Harrell.
Harrell. Okay, cool. Where's Andre at now?
He passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
He passed away last year, unfortunately.
Okay. Wow, man, some exceptional just people that have been, in your life and are still with you today. And that's just incredible, man. It really is a testament to, this idea that's very real and alive, certainly by talking to you. And that is, having someone tell you, hey, I want to help and support you and I want to be a part of your growth. And I mean, it's something that never gets old. It's amazing to see the investment some of these people have made in you. And there's no doubt that you're, reverse mentoring and doing the same thing for other people. But it's beautiful. It's really cool. This has been an exceptional conversation. I want to ask you just a couple of lightning round questions, and then we'll wrap.
Sure.
Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you have a hard stop at the top of the hour?
No, but I need to go probably in 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Cool. That's plenty of time. All right, here we go. Marketing Trends Podcast is brought to you by Salesforce. We bring marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing. Okay, Rashad Drakeford, first question. This one's a simple one. What is your favorite feature about the Robinhood app experience?
Favorite feature? I would probably have to say just the I'm a marketer, I'm sorry. But I think the overall user experience, I think it's just so easy to use. It's so intuitive. And I think for even someone like me who is a novice is incredibly helpful.
I love it. For me, the IPO alert. I mean, I don't get many alerts on my phone. I have to shut most, but I like the IPO alerts. I like diving into companies that are kind of up and coming, and so that's a cool one.
Yeah, IPO access is shit. You know what? Can we do it over?
Yes.
IPO access.
Okay, so what's your favorite feature about the Robinhood app?
For sure, I would say the IPO access.
Okay.
I think it's one thing when you can go on the app and be able to trade stocks and crypto. But it's another thing when you're able to actually get in within the company before it actually goes public. Companies that you believe in or companies that you think that they have the ability to do something special. I think that is an incredible opportunity when we talk about democratizing finance, being able to invest in a company pre-IPO. I think is the absolute manifestation of our mission.
So I got to ask in closing, Rashad, what are a couple of your favorite podcasts?
Well, as you know, Jeremy, my number one favorite podcast is absolutely Robinhood Snacks, which is our daily podcast where we cover the market news and what's happening. And so everyone should absolutely go and listen to Robinhood Snacks. I would also say I love the Daily New York Times. I think they just do a phenomenal job of taking, some news that's top of mind and really kind of explaining the who, the what, the where, the how, and the why. And then the last one I'd say, is Ben Simmons, his sports podcast. I love his hot takes. I love his deep dives into sports betting, as well as what's happening with his Patriots and Boston Celtics. I think he's just a phenomenal personality, and it's like one of my easy listenings when I'm flying or driving.
I love it. That's awesome. Those are all good. Actually, Robinhood Snacks, they do a great job on that podcast, man. It's like it's a tidbit. It's entertaining. It's like it keeps me on. I mean, I can hop in the car, listen to it on the way to the studio, and it's good, man. They're doing a great job. So please let them know.
We'll do. Yeah. They've been doing just such an incredible job. And we're so proud of our partnership we did with Snacks on Snapchat. So bringing the Snacks content to other platforms where we announced we're also bringing it in app as well, so people in app will be able to experience the Snacks work. And so just super exciting future when it comes to how do we, again, when we think about democratizing finance, yes, it's great user experience, yes, it's some of the great products we have in app, but it's also how are we explaining really complex issues for people in ways that they can easily digest? And so the future, I think, is really exciting in that space.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here, Rashad. This has been incredible, much more than incredible, man. Someone like you with such really cool experience. I'm excited about what you're up to. I remain bullish on Robinhood, and I know that this brand isn't going anywhere. So thanks so much for being here, man. We'll do it again.
We're here to stay. Thank you so much, Jeremy.